calm rhythm soothes our body and mind. But in our modern world, the constant hum of urban life has become a silent threat. What if this noise we can't escape is quietly damaging our health? Did you know that cardiovascular diseases are the number one cause of death among non communicable diseases worldwide? But here's something alarming: the very sounds that fill our daily lives could be quietly endangering us. Yet, we are only beginning to understand just how much noise affects our health. From the rush of the metro to the hush of the library, it's the background of our lives. So ordinary and constant, we forget to question them. We don't just hear our surroundings, we live them. Even in silence, you can sense both the chaos and the calm captured in this image. But what happens when we find ourselves in those environments? To seek answers, we interviewed a diverse group of individuals to share their experiences.
ხო, დიახ, მიხდება ხმაურიან გარემოში ცხოვრება, მირჩევნია სიმშვიდეში, მაგრამ ქალაქში სულ ხმაურია.
Both. No, maybe probably in more in noisy environment since I live in this city. So in Tbilisi, it's mostly noisy everywhere. I also live pretty much in the middle of the city, so at home I can also hear like road sounds.
First part of my day starts more quietly until I get to my job where I'm working. But usually it is outside of my working place that is the most noisy environment.
Most of my day is spent either studying quietly in the library or working in my office. However, when I'm on the university campus attending events or at home, particularly during the busy evening hours, the environment tends to be quite noisy.
As I'm spending my full time in office, daytime, it's sometimes it's noisy around, but mostly it's peaceful, especially when I'm concentrating and working. Somehow I make this decision to be close and don't hear anything except and be concentrated on a job what I'm doing. Therefore, it's this noisy background is going somewhere and it's just vanish for me. I don't know, but mostly it's peaceful.
Yes, definitely. I can feel the difference when I'm in the noisy environment. I can feel it makes me more anxious and so sort of you get tired.
Generally speaking, noisy environment affects my sleeping habits. And because of that, I think that after it affects the sleeping habits, it has a certain impact on my health too.
I can tolerate noisy settings up to a certain point. Beyond that, I start feeling irritated, frustrated, and develop headaches, making it hard to concentrate. For example, when I travel in crowded metro or buses and then move to a calmer place, I notice a significant difference. I am much more relaxed.
I didn't pay too much attention to this, but still, I don't think that I have it have a huge influence. Small ones, I believe, yes.
არა მგონია ჩემზე რაღაცნაირად ემოქმედა, იმიტომ რომ ვერ გრძნობ ვერაფერს და ალბათ შეიძლება არაფერს არ ემოქმედა.
I didn't have any prior information about noise potentially impacting human health.
During the training, resistance of the stress, how to resist to stress, I heard about it that this noisy environment where the person is spending a whole day or spend a lot of time there during a week, it might cause some problem issues, but I don't know, I haven't read any scientific research in this regard. Therefore, I have very little access to this kind of information.
ზოგადად კი გამიგია რომ რაღაც აქ გავლენა ადამიანის ორგანიზმზე ხმაურს, მაგრამ როგორც ასეთი ტელევიზიიდან და პრესიდან და როგორც ასეთი გარკვეული რო იყო, არა, ასეთნაირად გარკვეული არა ვარ მე ამ საქმეში.
Noise definitely affects anxiety levels, and anxiety through cortisol and other ways is definitely can be linked to cardiovascular system. So yeah, it makes sense, but I haven't heard of it.
I have read in several articles that changing your sleeping patterns influences your blood glucose level, even heart rate, arterial blood pressure levels, and so indirectly it affects human health.
Different people, different experiences. In their answers lie fragments of a puzzle, one that science is steadily piecing together. Now, let's turn to our experts who will reveal the science behind it all.
Noise pollution is an important public health threat. The European Environment Agency actually ranks noise pollution second to air pollution most harmful for public health. Impacts, acoustic footprints, let's say, on planet and on human health became more prominent with the invention of steam engine in 18th century. Then already, and this can be somehow considered as the point in time when noise pollution, human-driven noises started to become detrimental for human health. And obviously with acceleration of human anthropogenic activities, noise pollution grew as well. Especially that became prominent with invention of cars, rapid urbanization, and invention of aviation. Nowadays, we see that although World Health Organization recommended noise pollution thresholds are 55 decibel during daytime and 40 decibel during nighttime, this data is often exceeded in many parts of the world and many parts, especially in urban cities, where traffic, road traffic, aviation, factories, this all cause and aggravate the situation with regard to acoustic pollution. But what is it is important to understand that noise pollution affects health, and there is already enough data to showcase how it affects health. It affects mental health, cardiovascular health, is a big stressor. There are studies that show that adversely impacts cognitive functioning and also development of children. So health effects are quite prominent, and scientists are more looking in it nowadays. But what is also noteworthy, acoustic climate change. There is even this term that scientists are coining now to use and to describe the detrimental effect of noise pollution on the planet as a whole. So I think that in the discourse of climate change, it is very important to also mention noise pollution as actively as we talk about air pollution or heat waves or water pollution and so on. In Tbilisi, we know that there are many traffic-loaded areas. It's a big urban city, and one of the studies that was conducted in 2023 in Vakasa-Burtalo district demonstrated that decibels were exceeding WHO norms almost on all measured points of the study. So therefore, there is some evidence that many people living in this urban area are exposed to harmful effects of noise pollution chronically. So that is very important to understand, and also to understand its linkages to health effects. Healthcare professionals, medical students should be more vocal by talking about noise pollution, because patients should be aware about its harmful effects, public should be aware about it, and there should be more frequent discourse about importance of noise pollution and about ways of how we can combat this problem. And obviously, we know through history that these advocacy efforts are always worthwhile, and only by this, when public health professionals became champions.
It's important to know that us humans, we are born with certain innate instincts. And one of those instincts is fear of noise, fear of loud noises. So we're born with two innate fears, actually, fear of heights and fear of loud noises. So we're not taught that. We know that when we hear a loud noise, we move away from it, we put our hands up to protect ourselves from it, we duck, we put our head away. And all of those are indications that we think that the loud noise is some sort of threat, some sort of danger to us. Even though it's not always the case. If we hear a car honk in the street, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're in danger. But unfortunately, our brain doesn't distinguish that much between a fear of a lion behind us who is about to eat us or a car in the street who just honked. So when we are fearing for our lives, when we fear to be under some sort of threat, our body goes into sympathetic nervous system mode of being, which is basically fight or flight. And an axis called a hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which is a fancy term saying that brain tells your adrenaline glands to release epinephrine, norepinephrine to get your body in the mode of fight or flight to survive. And that's our sympathetic nervous system. That's the fight or flight. If the stressor is constant, if the stressor is chronic, we are in the chronic state of fear and chronic state of hypervigilance, which means that we are going to have heightened levels of specific molecules in our body that have to do with stress. One of those molecules is cortisol. So cortisol is something that we definitely need when we're under an attack or under a real threat. But if for whatever reason we have chronically elevated cortisol, it can have serious negative effects on our bodies. So some of these effects include poor wound healing, low immunity, obviously impaired sleep, and complications such as risk of obesity and higher risk of diabetes. Okay. Everybody who is exposed to noise pollution can essentially get affected to some extent. And to what extent we get affected is depending on many factors. For example, how long we've been exposed and what are our protective factors, such as do we use headphones, do we use noise canceling equipment, do we have windows or doors that are canceling out street noise. But it's important to note that there are certain people who are more vulnerable and more susceptible to negative effects of noise pollution. And these are children, these are elderly, and these are people who have certain mental health disorders and neurodivergencies. So, for example, to give you a few examples, anxiety is heightened fear in situations where there may not be reason to fear. So a person who is suffering from anxiety is already living in hyper-vigilant state, is already living in a state of fear, has the fight or flight reaction already working in the overdrive. And now put that person in an environment where you add an extra stressor and their brain perceives even more dangers and more opportunities to be afraid. So that would obviously worsen their anxiety. Another important mental health condition to consider when we're talking about noise pollution is PTSD. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, and people who are suffering from PTSD are already in a hypervigilant state. So they are easy to startle, and they can be afraid of situations where other people who are not suffering from mental health disorders will not be afraid. So especially if their trauma was somehow related to loud noises, such as war, for example, or an earthquake or a natural disaster where during the trauma there was a lot of noise pollution, then when we put these people in an environment, in a neighborhood where there is a lot of noise pollution, obviously they're going to have harder time recovering from their PTSD. And another important condition to talk about is neurodivergency. So neurodivergent people, for example, those who are on the autism spectrum or those who have ADHD, they're often susceptible to a thing called overstimulation. So outside stimulus becomes too much for them to handle, and they can have negative reactions towards that. They can go into a burnout. They can be overstimulated and shut down, especially children suffering from either autism or ADHD. So when we put these children in an already loud situation, such as a school, for example, in a city or a town where there is also a lot of noise in the street, we are setting them up for being easily overstimulated, which would then obviously negatively affect their performance at school. Many studies have shown how lack of sleep or disturbed sleep can worsen already existent mental health disorders and also cause certain mental health disorders such as anxiety. When we sleep, we have certain cycles, and loud noise will disturb deep sleep, the sleep where a person gets most relaxed, and that's the sleep where if it gets disturbed, it could actually lead to overall feeling of exhaustion and not getting good night's sleep. So one could say that if somebody lives in a place where there is a lot of noise pollution, we can get used to it. And that's simply not true. We can all do an experiment or just notice next time we're cooking in the kitchen, when we have the fan on, we slowly stop noticing it. So the fan goes on, we stop noticing it, but as soon as somebody turns that kitchen fan off, we feel the instant relief. We feel how good it feels to have that noise turned off. So even though, technically speaking, we consciously got used to the kitchen fan in the background, our brain actually didn't get used to it. Our brain was in the discomfort of that noise, and as soon as we turned it off, we felt the relief and we felt how good it felt to be in the less noise polluted environment.
Why we try to escape from the city and find some calm place like fields, forests, maybe something nearby seas. We do like the serenity. We like when there is less noises. Our heart beats better, our pressure harmonizes, and everything feels better. And vice versa, when we're loud places with noisy environment, somewhere close to airports, in traffic jams, in factories where there's chronic noise. Here, vice versa, when we are in noisy environment, we want to escape from this place. We do not like it, and our heart is beating faster. We are feeling this kind of dangerous environment for our health, and it is really dangerous for us. So whenever this situation happens and this chronic noise and can lead to some serious detrimental effects on the heart. It can be like production of stress hormones, inflammatory markers, increasement of the risk factors like blood pressure, blood lipids, viscosity, glucose, clotting factors, vasoconstriction, oxidative stress, with thrombosis, and finally causing major cardiovascular events, arrhythmias and stroke. That's why the serenity and the quiet place will be the best for us to find places for weekends, for holidays. Please, we are advising you to find some kind of quiet places where all people, especially people of old ages, should feel better. It will be good for your parents, for your grandparents, etc., even for the young generation. I'm very glad that our students of Tbilisi Medical Academy decided to advocate this idea and to promote this kind of notion about this healthy lifestyle, including less noisy environments, and it's very important for everybody to know about this.
Effective prevention requires coordinated efforts across individual behaviors, community planning, and policy enforcement. Noise pollution is not inevitable. At every level, we can take steps to protect our hearts and our health. Prevention begins with you. Measure, protect, reduce. Measure. Check the decibel levels in your environment to know when you're exposed to potentially harmful noise. Protect. If levels exceed recommended thresholds, use earplugs or noise cancelling headphones, or make simple adjustments at home like soundproofing bedrooms, using heavy curtains, or white noise machines. Reduce. These steps help limit harmful exposure, improve sleep, and empower you to take control of your environment, safeguarding your heart and overall health. Communities are at the heart of prevention. Together, community efforts can turn noisy cities into healthier, more sustainable spaces. Green spaces and tree planting don't just beautify our cities, they act as natural noise shields, protecting homes, schools, and vulnerable populations. Thoughtful urban design with parks and noise barriers along busy roads can significantly cut long term exposure. Community action also means awareness, public campaigns, education, and advocacy that make people see noise as a real health hazard. And within this effort, healthcare professionals play a key role, counseling patients on risks and guiding them toward protective choices. At a broader level, effective prevention relies on strong policy and regulation. Government can safeguard public health by enforcing neighborhood noise and speed limits, along with stricter regulations for airports, traffic, and workplaces, quieter transportation design, and horn free zones near hospitals and schools, all of which is backed by continuous monitoring, which can significantly reduce harmful exposure. Investing in research is essential to deepen our understanding of how chronic noise harms human health and to develop effective mitigation strategies. A healthy lifestyle helps counteract the invisible toll of chronic noise exposure and builds resilience. Regular exercise lowers stress hormones and strengthens the cardiovascular system. Good nutrition, especially an anti inflammatory diet, supports vascular health. Restorative sleep and stress management practices like mindfulness, meditation, breathing exercises, or yoga calms the nervous system and balance stress hormones. Even simple habits such as daily walks or spending time in nature creates moments of peace that allow the body to recover and recharge.